I'll call this regularly scheduled meeting to order of the Transportation and Public Works Committee, this day, July 25, 2017. I'm Councilmember Reich. I chair the committee. I'm joined by my colleagues, Councilmember Yang, Palmisano, and Gordon. We are a quorum, and we'll proceed with today's agenda, which has 10 items. We have consent items and a few public hearings. I'll go through the consent items. Any committee member can pull them for further consideration. Item 4 on the consent is the agreement with the Metro Transit for snow storage. Item 5 is the water utility easement agreement with Millen Corporation for hydrant location. Item 6 is the agreement with the City of St. Paul for water connection point. Item 7 is the agreement with Aclora Technologies, LLC for advanced meter infrastructure purchase and implementation. We also have item 8, a cooperative agreement with Hennepin County and Minneapolis and the Recreation Board for traffic signal replacement and pedestrian improvement projects. Item 9 is a cooperative construction agreement with Hennepin County for I-35W and Lake Street Transit Project. And then item 10 is the Minneapolis Street Lighting Plan Amendment to include 42nd Avenue North from Xerxes Avenue North, Lyndale Avenue North as a pedestrian street lighting corridor project and contract amendment with Valley Paving for the project. And I wish to pull any items. Councilmember Yang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to add a comment for item number 10, if I may.
Oh, please do.
With regards to item 10, adding the 42nd Avenue reconstruction project and putting it on the pedestrian lighting corridor project. Mr. Chair, I just wanted to point out that, when you look at 42nd Avenue North, I really support what we've done here, but I also just want to mention that we had a project in Ward 5 that is still currently going on, 26th Avenue North, and I look at the criteria for 42nd Avenue North, and I wish we would have applied the same criteria for 26th Avenue North to have that included as well. And so I just wanted to point that out. That it'd be nice just to see that in the near future, but certainly I'm supportive of item number 10.
Thank you for that comment, and we are actually doing just that. We felt 42nd could be sort of our test case to figure out how we could adjust our policy moving forward. And I think we now have the mechanics of how we do that, and now other eligible, highly eligible corridors like 26 and of course 26 North and 18th Northeast are someday going to be one, and so that would be the standard that we would be looking at. Perhaps the director would add to that.
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Yang, and members of the committee, the chair is correct that we assessed 42nd Avenue as a pilot initially, and what we've done is refer back to the policy and used the language in the policy that states very clearly that corridors may be added under certain conditions, and prepared a very robust analysis of that corridor. And we really are using it as a test case. As other corridors come forward, we will perform the same analysis on those corridors to determine their eligibility for addition.
Director Hutchinson, when you're talking about future projects, for projects that are already, I guess, done or close to done, are we going to do a reevaluation or a retroactive reevaluation of those specific projects as well?
Director Hutchinson.
Mr. Chair and Councilmember Yang, we had not intended on looking back on previous projects because what afforded the ability on 42nd Avenue is that the conduit is already in the corridor. That being said, I think we would be open to, if conduit exists, looking back in the corridors that may have been eligible in the past, and I'd be happy to follow up with you along with staff on your concerns. I appreciate your recognition that 42nd Avenue does make some sense here, and I also can appreciate that you have corridors that you care about, and we're happy to talk with you further about them.
Thank you. Anything further on item 10? Okay, then we'll move on to item 11, which is the South Hay Area Resurfacing Project. That'll be a postponed resurfacing for Russell, Queen, and 12th Avenue. As described, item 12 is the sidewalk repair and replacement assessment removal for 4300 4th Avenue South. Item 13 is the West Broadway Improvement Special Service District, the 2018 proposed services and service charges. Item 14 is the special service districts for the section 428A districts, also the proposed services and charges. And item 15 is the bid for structural lining of a water main. Location listed and price also listed. Anyone wants to pull any item on the consent? Seeing none, all in favor of the consent items, say aye. Aye. Dissenting name. Those carry. We can now proceed to the public hearings. Going to the first one, which is public hearing for the snow and ice removal from public sidewalk assessments. Director Hutchinson.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Mike Kennedy will present this item. This is passage of a resolution adopting the assessments for snow and ice removal charges for last season.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Mike Kennedy, I'm the Director of Transportation Maintenance and Repair for Public Works. Each winter season, Public Works enforces the city's sidewalk shoveling ordinance. Property owners who had snow and ice removed by the city and were billed for the work had the option of paying their bill or have the cost added to their property taxes as an assessment. For those choosing the latter, this action is to proceed with the process for collecting those assessments. An assessment letter was sent to property owners, which included advising them to contact Public Works Sidewalk Inspections in writing if they had an issue with their assessment. Sidewalk Inspections then contacted the property owner to discuss their concerns regarding the pending assessment, and if a resolution could not be worked out, the property owner was advised that the next step would be to appear before an administrative hearing officer. The assessments proposed in this action include the resolutions of all discussions with property owners and the determinations made by the hearing officer. There were 4 people who came to the hearing and contested. Actually, the hearing officer did change 3 of them, and the numbers in our action today reflect that. The properties on the list to be assessed, dated June 26, 2017, is on file with the City Engineer Special Assessment Office. Had the snow and ice removal work done by the city, were sent a bill for the cost of the removal, and they were notified that a special assessment for the removal charge plus interest would be added to the real estate taxes if the charges were not paid through the normal billing process. The amount to be assessed as special assessment principal is the cost of the removal work. The total principal amount of the proposed assessment on the list of properties to be assessed is $21,036.14. The assessments would be collected on their entirety on the 2018 real estate tax statements with interest. The interest rate will be 2.8%. Just as a point of interest, there were about 1/3 of the people paid their bills up front, and so this represents about 2/3 of the work orders the bills for the work orders that people chose to have assessed on the property taxes. So we recommend passage of a resolution to adopt the assessments in the total amount of $21,036.14, levy the assessments, adopt the assessment roll, and transmit certified copies of the assessment roll to the Hennepin County Auditor. So that's our presentation this morning.
Any questions per the presentation? Seeing none, I will then open the public hearing. Does anyone wish to come forward and make comment on this item? Anyone wish to come forward? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. I will move this item and note that this might not be the topic that's top of mind at the moment in the middle of summer, but it's good that we're laying out a game plan now because this is a very important way we keep our bus stops accessible, our walkways accessible. It's a big part of how our citizens move around. So thank you for the game plan, and I will move this item. All in favor say aye. Aye. Dissenting nay. That carries. We'll now go to item 2, which is the public hearing for Essex Street Southeast Sanitary Sewer Project Assessments. Director Hutchinson.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Katrina Kessler, the Director of Surface Water and Sewer, will present this item. This is passage of resolution ordering the work to proceed and adopting special assessment to construct the Essex Street Southeast Sanitary Sewer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Katrina Kessler, Director of the Surface Water and Sewers Division within Public Works. We're here today because we're responding to a petition from the owner of 2618 Essex Avenue Southeast for a new sanitary sewer running along Essex Street between 26th and 27th Avenue Southeast. Currently, there is no public sewer main along that right-of-way. GB Group and Wells and Company are building a 25-unit micro-unit apartment building at 2618 Essex Street and submitted the petition. 3 properties, including that parcel, share an aging private sewer lateral currently. We support the construction of a public sewer down the entire street in this location because long-term ownership by the city and maintenance oversight of the sanitary sewer will provide a public benefit for all adjacent properties for perpetuity. The cost of the public sanitary sewer is $264,360, and it is policy and practice to assess the cost of new sewers to benefiting properties based on the front linear footage. Consistent with city charter, the assessment rate in this case was adjusted for corner properties and properties that have sewer access via an adjoining street. The primary assessment rate is $347.84 per foot, and the secondary rate for corner lots and properties with alternate access was adjusted to $173.92. We sent letters to the owners of the 6 parcels receiving the assessment, and we reached out personally to all of the property owners. Just this morning, we received an objection from the owner of 2618 Essex Street Southeast, and we're working to understand the nature of that objection. If the council supports this action, Surface Water and Sewers intends to build the sewer in this location by the end of September this year.
Thank you. Any questions for staff per the presentation? Seeing none, I will then open the public hearing. Does anyone wish to come forward? I do have someone listed, Josh Beatty. Come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Good morning. My name is Josh Beatty. I'm the owner of GB Group and the owner of 2618 as well as 2624 and 2628. So I apologize. I would have got my email out sooner, but the letters went to the wrong address for all 3 of those properties. So thankfully, city engineer gave me a call last week, and we had a couple conversations, and I was able to make it today. So in my email, the objection I had was to the price of $264. Kelly just explained to me the breakdown of that. We had gotten a bid last year when we were looking to do it privately, or running down the line on Essex for $110,000. So I now have a better understanding of what the breakdown is for the actual line. So it doesn't necessarily see us out of line as I thought, based on the limited information that I got within days before showing up here and sending the email this morning. I do have an objection, however, and I talked with Jeremy briefly about this, and he advised me to come here. I'll continue to write letters and communication as needed, but for 2624 and 2628, we are planning to combine those properties and do another apartment. We have a meeting with the Prospect Park neighborhood group scheduled for August 3rd, and then we plan to go into the PDR process and continue on with that building for September of 2018 completion date. As such, we have access on 2618 on 2628, the corner property, to the sewer line on 27th. So I'm not in support. I object to having the additional cost to have a secondary sewer access. I don't need the flexibility. We're going to have it. We'll build a building, and we'll just put in our line to connect to 27th. I don't see any reason to add the additional cost to go all the way past 2618 and then continue to 27th. The access that'll come down to 2618 should be able to service the other property group, the other property owners across the street and to the west of 2618.
Very good. Well, thank you for that presentation. Does anyone else want to come forward? Does anyone else want to come forward? Staff, do you want to comment on the system approach that we took at this location?
Chair Reich and council members, I appreciate the opportunity to respond. We will continue to work with Mr. Beatty and others who are interested to understand how this works. I just want to note that the existing line that he mentioned on the corner property is serviced by an approximately 100-year-old long shared private lateral, and we see instances of failed private laterals and private infrastructure of this age across the city all the time. And we see that a public sewer in this location to serve multiple connections provides benefit to the city all along that block going forward for generations, as evidenced by the fact that our sewers are lasting 100+ years, but now we need to address them. And it is important to also note that properties today may have one configuration, but 50 or 75 years from now, things may change, and having the access to a sewer down one street and the adjoining street provides that flexibility for future options as well.
Thank you for that clarification. Director Hutchinson?
Mr. Chair, I think I would like to have a bit more time with this property owner to understand the nature of his objections, also to be sure that we have the correct addresses and we can communicate with you as efficiently as possible. I heard several different things in your testimony today, and I do think it bears a bit more discussion about exactly where your concerns are and how we can communicate and work through those with you.
Councilor Gordon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'd like to move to continue this or hold it in committee, so there's opportunity for more discussions. And I also just wanted to note that this area of the city is old industrial area that wasn't built out for residential. I believe that it's in the best interest of the city to build out an effective sewer system. We're seeing more density being built here right along Essex. This is right near the University of Minnesota. So I also have a real interest in making sure we do it right, not just for the next project that's coming down, but so that we make sure that we have the infrastructure in place we need for the future long-term development of the city. So I think it's really important we think real carefully about that. We don't just want to fit into some old thing because we know it's going to work for this development and this next project, but think about what might be coming on Essex, both sides of the street over the long term, and make sure we've got the infrastructure there so the next people don't have the same kind of problem about how do I connect to the sewer line there. One doesn't exist. So just wanted to put that out there, and then also move to, I don't know what the proper term is, whether we want to say table, postpone, or continue, but whatever is the right thing to do. Not the public hearing, but just the matter.
And does that comply with what our needs were for the construction and all that we would want to do to proceed with the project?
Mr. Chair, we verified that as long as we act swiftly from this point forward, we should be able to meet our schedules. So we are comfortable with postponing action.
Okay. So we will, I will close the public hearing and postpone action to be resumed at the next Public Works Committee. All in favor of that continuance, say aye.
Aye.
Send to nay. Okay, that settles that matter for now. And now we go to item 3 on the public hearing schedule, and that's the regulation of small cell wireless facilities on city-owned infrastructure, ordinance amendment, fee resolution, policy document, and co-location agreement. Director Hutt.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, as you know, there were discussions during the state legislature that resulted in actions that are required by us, the city. John Wertjes, the Director of Traffic and Parking Services, is here to explain our path forward on this.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and council members. John Wertjes, Director of Traffic and Parking. As indicated, this is a change to our regulations related to small cell wireless facilities related to our city infrastructure and our public right-of-way. A little bit of historical context to start out. Back in 2015, the city enacted a new ordinance, Chapter 451, which kind of set the stage initially on how the city would be allowing small cell wireless on its city infrastructure. And so over that time period here, over the past couple of years, we've had approximately 200 applications and approvals relative to that existing ordinance and policy that we have today. As indicated, our change today is reflective of state law change that is coming forward, or has come forward, I should say, in the 2017 legislative session. There are a number of parameters related to those statutes, but they became effective immediately upon adoption of that legislation, which occurred in May 31 of 2017. So some of the key changes to the state law include broader definitions on what small cell wireless is and how we define it. Likewise, it applies to not only city infrastructure, but also city managed right-of-ways. Small cells are permitted as a use in the right-of-way under state law. with some conditions related to historical and residential property areas. The city still continues some ability to regulate and charge fees and to prohibit them, but based on some finer limitations as laid out in the state laws, such as a reasonable health, safety, and welfare. Exclusive use is no longer allowed on the city infrastructure, so we will allow others on there. Co-locating has been added by state law with a 90-day approval process, and that is why one reason why we're here today. Likewise, the timeline for approving permits has been set by state law as 90 days, and the state law has also enacted specific fees under that law. So today, we are bringing forward 4 changes to our current policies and bringing them forward. So first is the changes to our Chapter 451 ordinances, and those changes are documented in the document that's attached. Second is a resolution of proposed fee changes in accordance with that state law change. The third is approval of some right-of-way attachment policies. We did have a policy before. It was limited to pole attachments, and in this case, we've broadened that definition in accordance with state law to deal with right-of-way as well, the global right-of-way attachment policy. And then the last item is the new co-location agreement for small cell facilities. So with that, Mr. Chair, those are my summary comments, and look forward to any feedback on the public hearing.
Any questions per the presentation? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. It's public hearing for item number 3. Anyone wish to come forward? Anyone wish to come forward? No one signed in. I will close the public hearing. I'll note that these were legislative actions that we did not necessarily seek. We certainly would be biased towards greater self-determination in most instances, just generally speaking. However, we did do some pre-work through your office, Mr. Wirtjes, and a lot of what we had set up, it comports, kind of set us up to comport with the current legislation. So that pre-work that you've done certainly came in use, and the work that you've done now, I believe, puts us in line with state law, and that's why we're doing this. So any further conversation? All in favor of the item before us, item 3, say aye.
Aye.
Dissenting name. That carries, and I believe that concludes our business today, and we are adjourned. Thank you.